And welcome to Cruise Control. Hey, Les, how you doing?
Hey, Fred. How are you doing?
All right, everything's going well, and we're going to take you on a ride around the automotive industry because, hey, we've got a lot to get to, and we're starting with Hyundai, aren't we?
We are. They've got big electrification plans and many more hybrid and extended range electrics on the way from Hyundai. And we have the 2025 Elantra and Sonata pricing, which I think people will be pleased.
Yeah, actually, some of them have gone down, which is unusual for any vehicles. So we're excited about that. And then also over at Ford, they have a upgrade. I'm not so sure if this is a over-the-air upgrade or if it's something you have to take it to your dealer to. It's not a lot of money, and you get a lot of horsepower out of it if you have a Ranger Raptor or a Bronco Raptor. And it's sort of like a tune, but it does not violate your warranty. So it's actually pretty interesting that they would do this, and we're excited to talk about it, right?
Yeah. Anything that doesn't violate the warranty is a good thing.
Yep.
And Jeep shows off the 2025 Compass. There's a big following for the Compass, so we'll talk about that.
Yep.
And then you have gotten one of our Consumer Reports associates to come on.
Yeah, exactly. And Consumer Reports typically does not cover used vehicles. Typically, it's all evaluations of new vehicles, which they actually buy. They buy each one of them, and then they evaluate it. So over at Consumer Reports, they have rated now, for the first time, the top 10 used cars under $20,000 and the most reliable used car brands. Alex Knizek, who is the Associate Director of AutoTest Development, joins us with some very useful information because, let's face it, vehicles are very expensive, and, hey, the price is going up, so a lot more people are buying used cars. Do you know, Les, what is the price, the average price of a used car?
I'm going to guess that it's 35,000.
30,000, so not far off, but 30,000. So
that's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money, and many times these cars have high miles for 30,000. It's not like they have 30,000 miles. It's like they are 80, 90,000, 100. Yeah,
I don't know.
So pretty big numbers there. So Alex will be by, and we'll have great information from Alex. And if you're looking to buy a used vehicle, it might be something you want to check out. Hey, we will be right back with more Cruise Control after this, so stay tuned.
Cruise Control.
And welcome back to Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine. Les Jackson is with us, Fred Staab. We've got a lot to get to, and it's going to be a great show. And we're going to start off with Hyundai, Les, because Hyundai has been doing a lot. And let's talk about their plans for doubling hybrids, because this is a big thing here. They want to double the number, according to their CEO Chang, wants to double the number of hybrids. And he's talking about doing this by 2026. I mean, basically, we're starting the 2025 model year. So
another model year,
Yeah. He said they want to expand their hybrid offerings up to 14. So basically, they're doubling it. They have 7 right now.
Yeah, it's almost all of the products. And this, it just shows you that some companies can just change overnight, so to speak. Whereas other companies, it takes them years to figure out how they're going to make this next product.
I know.
These
They
remarkable
have
company.
some great hybrids. They have the Sonata hybrid, which looks beautiful. They have
Yep.
the Elantra hybrid and many more. We'll talk about some of the pricing on some of those vehicles in a second. But beyond that, Les, they say they're also bringing out a brand new hybrid system, next generation hybrid system, that promises superior performance and fuel efficiency. Hasn't been confirmed yet, but it will be used on both conventional and plug-in hybrids. And then beyond that, they have a new acronym that is EREVs, or Extended Range Electric Vehicles. Right. It will be a engine that is used to charge the battery. Now, Ram has talked about this. They have their Ram charger. I don't think that has come out yet, but that's the concept. It is an electric vehicle with no connection, no drive shaft or anything from the engine, but it is charging the battery.
Much like the Volt, the Chevy Volt did.
Absolutely.
And actually, there was a company in the early part of the 20th century that was the first one to produce a car like that. And I will think of the name of it.
Okay.
Soon, but not right now.
Okay. Well, I just, what they're promising, Les, on these extended range electric vehicles? They're promising a range of more than 560 miles, which would rival things like the Lucid and some of the others.
Right. You only need a gas tank sufficient to fuel the generator engine, which isn't going to be a large engine.
No.
And it's running constant speed. So, this is honestly, this seems like such a simple thing to do. It just does.
And they're doing it. And my question to you, one of the big problems with electric vehicles, all electric vehicles, is the battery. So if I have a smaller battery, but I have a gas tank, and I have an engine, we don't know what kind of engine. Is it going to be a small four-cylinder, like let's say their 1.6-liter engine, which I believe is their smallest engine right now? Would the weight of an engine, a gas tank, and all the associated equipment that goes along with it be less than a full electric vehicle?
Oh, I think by a long shot, yeah. The engine, a small generator engine, a couple 100 pounds.
Yeah.
The gas tank, we're looking at 10 gallons? That's 6 pounds to the gallon for gas.
That's right. BMW used a motorcycle engine, I believe. Now, I don't know what their plan is here, but I believe Hyundai and all their industries, they probably have some engine that is small that could fit in there. I mean, remember the problem with the Chevy Volt was it was a full-size 1.4-liter four-cylinder that you would find in, let's say, a Chevy Cruze or something like that. And I thought, wow, that's, I don't know what that's like. That's like having a V12 Detroit diesel to run a generator to power your house. It seemed like overkill.
That's right. Well, but if you think about it, you don't need something huge to generate electricity if you're generating it constantly. So it just, I don't know. I don't know why other companies don't do this. Chevy stopped doing it.
Yes. As we were discussing at the opening of the show, it seems like Chevy came up with a lot of these ideas first and tried them, and then they just move away from them.
Yeah.
Electric vehicles, hybrid pickups, and then the Volt, the range extender Volt, stopped building it. Inexpensive, small electric cars. Now everyone's building them. They're going to build them again, I know. But but we were talking about this, and a case in point, Hyundai making this big announcement for, hey, we're going to double the number of hybrids and plug-in hybrids basically next year, next model year, 2026. We're already into 2025.
13 months away. That's it.
Right. And then, GM, on the other hand, is like, well, we'll bring out more hybrids around 2027. They have a hybrid Equinox right now, plug-in hybrid Equinox sold in China that supposedly gets 92 miles of all-electric range. I don't know if it would if it was brought here. It's how they rate them. Who knows? But why can't they step that up? I mean, the Equinoxes, I believe many of them are made in China anyway, so and
Yeah,
sold here.
just it's, bring it over.
Bring
I have a theory that may be wrong.
Okay.
And that theory is when you have companies like GM and others that are heavily weighted with multi-level management, you need to, when you bring out a product, you need to sell a certain minimum number of those products. Otherwise, you can't pay for all of your overhead.
Okay.
And if they don't meet that minimum, you just can it and you go to something else, which is, I think, very inefficient. But I don't believe, again, I don't know, but I don't believe Hyundai and Kia, for instance, have that kind of um, multi-level management structures that so many American corporations do. I'm going to check. See if,
You mean they have one or two people that will say like, "Hey, that's good. Let's do it."
right. It's kind of like the corporate equivalent of why colleges became so expensive because they've got massive layers of high-paid administrators, and they just kept cranking up the tuitions, 590%
Maybe
since the 90s.
maybe that's what it is. I mean, maybe Hyundai is, with all of their industries too, is bigger, much bigger than GM nowadays,
Yeah,
and they can absorb this. But I do think they sell these things.
yeah.
It's not like they're just building them to, I don't know. It would be interesting to know because why does it take GM so long to do things? I know everyone was heading down all electric. I don't know why they didn't see that people don't want $85,000 vehicles that go 200 miles.
It kind of went crazy there for a couple of years. Cost was no object, or at least they thought so.
Yeah. So, we'll see. We'll see where this all goes. But I tell you, let's talk about some pricing of some vehicles. Elantra, very nice vehicle, and I think just a great value. You have some pricing on them, right? And this 2025
Absolutely.
pricing. Look at what it starts at, Les. $21,875.
That's just so cheap. I mean, really, this is a car that's pretty fully equipped.
Yeah.
All the safety stuff.
Yeah.
Air conditioning and power windows, and I mean it. 21.8 is and it's a good car. It's a very good car.
Yeah.
Sporty.
Absolutely. Actually, it's less money. It's less money this year by a little bit than it was past. The Elantra Hybrid Blue is now available with a starting MSRP of $26,250. That is a hybrid. That is a hybrid. So
that's really inexpensive for a hybrid.
Yeah.
New.
And even if you go all the way up to the limited, that is $26,525. The N line, which is not the Elantra N, the N line is sort of like, sporty, but not without all the higher output of the
right.
Elantra N. That's $28,725. Hybrids, as I said, the HEV Blue starts at $25,100. If you load it all up, the hybrid's $29,450. And then above that, as I reviewed last week, the Elantra N with a 6-speed manual is $33,950 and $35,450 with the 8-speed wet clutch. I would say this is a great deal. This vehicle. I mean, when you look at what you get for $21,875, none of their vehicles are even at the base level, stripped out. They are really good values, right?
Yeah, that's right. And they're fun to drive. They're super reliable.
Yeah. So let's go over to another Hyundai vehicle, and that is the Sonata. This, to me, is a gorgeous car, what they've done for 2025. It is just a gorgeous looking car. Looks way much more expensive than what they're selling it for. The SE starts at 26,650, right? Which is a lot of vehicle
Yep.
for this. And you can get this vehicle in all-wheel drive as well. If you wanted the first model that gets all-wheel drive is the SEL all-wheel drive model. That's 29,250. And then you can go up from there. They have an N line for 35,000. Then the hybrid model starts at $31,000, and then the limited hybrid model is 37,450. This is just a good-looking vehicle, isn't it?
Well, it is. Again, they've just done a magnificent job on the looks of the cars, all the features of the cars, and how they feel. Again, the sister car, of course, is the Kia K5. Same thing. High quality materials on the inside and outside, and just really smooth, nice driving cars, and I mean car, I mean sedan, I mean
Well, they haven't.
five passenger.
That's true, Les. They have not abandoned the sedan.
Right.
They are a full line manufacturer that has everything in there. Well, with the exception, I guess, of a regular body on frame pickup truck. But who knows? We might see that at some point. We'll have to see, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's take a look at our next story. This is a good one. I mean, everyone likes to get a little more performance. People are going out and getting tunes and things like that. Well, if you own a Ranger Raptor or a Bronco Raptor, Ford has a tune for you. If you have the 3-liter EcoBoost engine, the Ranger Raptor, this is an upgrade. It's available for 2024 models. And it is 2024 Ranger Raptor and 2023 and 2024 Bronco Raptors. It allows for improved throttle response and optimized shift schedule. And it has an MSRP of $825. But the numbers, you get some pretty significant boosts in numbers. On the Ranger Raptor, the torque jumps from 430 to 536 pound-feet of torque.
That's a jump.
And the horsepower goes from 405 to 455. On the Bronco Raptor, the torque goes from 440 to 536, and the horsepower climbs from 418 to 455. And here's the big part. You're not violating your warranty in any way. You're not voiding your warranty in any way because this is a Ford upgrade. It seems it just seems like a great upgrade for, as you know, horsepower's never cheap, but this seems like a great upgrade for $825, doesn't it?
Well, yes, and the other thing is, imagine the amount of engineering to heavy duty these things so much that they can warrant it.
Well, that's it.
So you're getting something really well built. And you can't possibly build one yourself for the same money. So Ford is really good at this.
Yeah, and as you say, this tune, which is probably it is a tune that is uploaded to your vehicle. This passes their durability test. So when you get your vehicle tuned somewhere else, if you go for a super aggressive tune, you will be shortening the life of your engine, depending on how you drive it, how often you drive it. Not necessarily. Like they say, like the typical LS can take like well over 800 horsepower LS V8, and they leave the factory around 300, 400, so there's a wide margin in there. And they do that for durability. But if you tune it, you can eat up some of that kind of leeway.
Yep.
And you can do that safely within reason. But if you go for huge horsepower, then you're going to start blowing things up. And as you know what they say in racing, if you're racing less, if you're not braking something, you're not trying hard enough.
Oh, yes. It's easy to break stuff in racing.
Yeah, yeah. So I think this is a great upgrade. If it's something that appeals to you, I think it's well worth it because the torque is where you're going to feel it. That's a pretty massive increase for under $1,000, and I don't think you find a better deal than that, somewhere else. Would you agree?
I would agree. How they can do this for under $1,000 escapes me, but no Ford pun intended. But
Not available on the Ford Escape.
no, definitely not. But
Yeah.
it's very cool. And they ride smooth. Raptors ride smoothly. Well, not
Yes.
off road, but on the road.
Yes, they're the most usable, well-equipped off-road vehicle on the road, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Right.
But let's talk Jeep Compass. Jeep, of course, and the Stellantis brand has been having some troubles later. We're going to go into that. We're going to go into that later. But let's talk about the Jeep Compass. As you know, they got rid of the Cherokee, so the Compass has kind of been filling in for this. It starts at $27,495, steps up to the Latitude at $29,765. Limited $33,840, and Trailhawk, the most capable, for $33,990. And now for 2025, it comes loaded with standard content and safety features. And as I said, you can get into the first two models, the Sport and the Latitude, for significantly under $30,000. They need to keep selling vehicles, Jeep does, and as I said, losing the Cherokee was a big blow to them. But hopefully for them, this will sell. They've had a lot of trouble lately, the Stellantis brands, but we have to see how that will all come out. And we'll talk about it a little bit later on. But there you have it, the Jeep Compass. So pretty cool, right?
Well, the Compass is a good vehicle. The question is, are the buyers going to, embrace it, or are they looking for something else? It's certainly worth, if you have any interest in a Jeep product, then it's well worth going to take a look at one and drive it.
Yeah.
Prices are great.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's an interesting story I found. This comes from Car Scoops, and it's kind of, what do they think of next? Criminals, right? Apparently what people are doing is putting fake parking tickets on your windshield, and this has happened in Calgary, Canada, as well as New York City, and it's a form of phishing. They say, you have this ticket here. You have to pay this. If you pay it by a certain time, it will be $10. If you don't pay it after that, it's going to go up $25 a day. And then, call this number or go to this website or whatever. Completely fake. They're just sticking this on people's cars, and people are paying it because it looks official enough. Yep. What do you think of that? That I wanted to mention this because if you get this, they say, call the agency, but don't call the number that's on the fake ticket.
No.
Figure out where the number is for the agency, and then call them. But I always say, if people could just think of a better way to make money than this, if they're that creative, they could do it for real.
If they're that creative and willing to take a risk, it seems to me you could do better by doing something legitimate. Yeah.
And, it's off to the races. If you give them your credit card or banking information, I'm sure they'll just be helping
Oh boy.
themselves to a lot more than $10 or $25. I think they'll, remember, this is organized. If you ever watch those videos on the web of the scammers where the guy hacks into the scam scam center and there's like 100 people sitting in a room telling you your computer is infected and you better get
That's right.
the
Or,
$500 a year service.
Yeah, I'm calling from your medical provider.
Yes.
That's the latest, and they're just trying to sell you bogus insurance or something.
And another tip, if they say, hey, is this Fred? You never say yes, because they can use your
No.
yes.
I always say, well, it depends. Who's calling?
Right, because it is customary when you call someone to say, hi, my name is blah, blah, and I'm calling from blah, blah. Do you have a moment? That's kind of customary how you do it, right?
Exactly. You've got to be careful, and just always, always, always be skeptical of any email or any phone call that you haven't asked for, because somebody wants you to give them money or something.
Yes.
And just be skeptical.
Yeah, exactly. Good skeptical. Well, coming up, we're going to hear from Consumer Reports. Alex Knizek, who is the Associate Director for AutoTest and Development, will join us with some very useful information about used vehicles. This is a big deal for Consumer Reports because typically they have just reported and tested very well new vehicles, but this is a step into used vehicles. And there are a lot of deals out there, and it's funny. You and I always talk about this. Sometimes we don't think about these used vehicles or vehicles from the past, but they're pretty good value. So Alex is going to join us in a little bit, and we will be right back with Cruise Control. So stay tuned. I'm Fred Staab. He is Les Jackson. We will be right back. And welcome back to Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine with Fred Staab and Les Jackson. And Les, you and I have been talking about the cost of vehicles. The average cost is at least of a new vehicle, at least $45,000, maybe more. But we want to hear a little bit about used cars. Now, most times, Consumer Reports does a great job of reviewing new vehicles. They even have to buy all their vehicles, so it's completely honest. But we wanted to hear about their new plans now to look at used cars and rate used cars. So Alex Knizek is with us. Alex, welcome to Cruise Control. We appreciate that. Is one of your used cars that 57 Chevy that's in the back? Because
those are all used at this point. So.
Yeah, they would be all used at this point. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit. How did this happen? How did you think about used cars? Maybe that's something we should start rating.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of alluded to a big point about it is that the average transaction price right now for a new car is. You said $45,000. It's $48,000 if you look in some sources. So either way, it's approaching $50,000 is what people are paying on average for a new car, which is just a crazy amount of money. So, we kind of started there and started to look at where the market is, and we also see the used car market rebounding a little bit. Especially compared to the pandemic, prices down a little bit, 10% in some cases just in the last year. And inventory going up too. So you're kind of more likely to get the car that you actually want, which is a great thing, and hopefully pay a more reasonable price. So all this stuff coming together. And, another really interesting thing is we did some research just polling not only CR members, but also surveying just Americans nationally. And we see that 40% of Americans who are looking to purchase a vehicle in the next year, they're only looking at used. They're not even considering new cars at all. So all of this stuff together, we said, hey, this is the right time for CR to really expand. Like you mentioned, we've been known for new car reviews and new car reliability for a long time, but hey, let's go and help out all these people who aren't even going down that path at all. They're only considering used cars. So time was right.
Now, I went through this, by the way, personally in the spring. I was looking for
Mhm.
a used, uh, slightly used, like less than
Okay.
3 years old,
Lightly used, yeah.
Likely used.
lightly used, not
Yeah.
something that we were testing because they're
Uh-huh.
not lightly used.
Right.
And ultimately, and I was very close to buying one. But ultimately, the prices for low mileage used, and
Mhm.
by low mileage, less than 20,000 miles,
Right.
used uh, cars, and these are cars,
Mhm.
it was in the very high 20s. And
Yeah.
ultimately, I realized that I could use some connections in the auto business. Um, and get a friends and family discount and some other
Okay.
things. I could buy a new one. So I
Mhm.
did, but the fact is, looking at used vehicles, there was a heck of a selection
Yeah.
in the slightly less than $30,000 range, and
Mhm.
you're not paying shipping,
Right.
you're not paying, well, you are paying tax, uh, but it was interesting. You can see why some of these big used vehicle centers like CarMax and
Mhm.
so forth just have enormous numbers of customers. It's
Right.
it's it's a great way
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah, you're not paying for that depreciation hit, right? That we're all pretty familiar with when
Right.
you buy a new car and as the saying goes, you drive it off the lot and
Yeah,
whichever 20% say of the value of the vehicle just basically falls away and you see a depreciation curve within the first couple of years that you ultimately don't have to pay for. So now I will say there are some benefits of going both ways, right? With a new car, you're getting the latest safety technology, even just down to the structure of the vehicle. It's going to be built with the most modern materials and in the most modern way. And then, of course, all the latest features and things like that that come along with it. But if you do it smartly and you can find a lot of the information on our site about how to get a great deal on a used car and you can find something that even though, yeah, it might be in the lightly used category or even more, it can still be safe and reliable. So you don't really have to sacrifice all that just because you want to, buy a used car instead of paying for a new one.
Well, let's, Alex, look at some of the vehicles. You've highlighted
Sure.
some out here. The
Cool.
10 top used car picks.
Hmm.
And I was saying to Les, sometimes we don't even think about these vehicles. They come out and then, like,
no,
wait a
we don't.
minute, who made that one? And so what's the first one on your list that you'd like to highlight? And I'll try to bring it up for you.
Sure. I mean, I think the most surprising one on here for me is and I'm pulling up the list too, so I get them right. The 2017 Chevrolet Cruze, I think, is a surprising one. So the way we did, I'll just describe a little bit how we came up with the list. So we have them in different price categories, right? So the Chevrolet Cruze we're looking at right now is in our under $10,000 category, which
Wow.
is, it's still a lot of money, of course, but compared to 48 or even, the average price of a used car is still 30 grand. So under $10,000, and this is a 2017 model year. So yes, it is maybe getting out of that lightly used category, but it's still relatively new and it's going to be safe and it's going to be reliable. So when we chose all these vehicles, they had to have this consistent above average reliability, which is the information we get through our members every single year by doing our surveys, asking them basically in these 20 different areas, which issues did you have with your car? So that comes in, of course. They also had to do well when they were new, when we tested them. As you mentioned, we buy everything that we test. And so these cars had to perform well when they were new. And then safety. All of these cars have standard stability control, which we know is a proven safety feature. It was mandatory in 2012, but there were a lot of cars that had it even sooner than that. So we kind of make it easy to identify all that stuff. So I think that one for me is a little surprising.
Right.
The next one I'll go to is the 2020 Mazda CX-9. This is maybe a vehicle nobody's talking too much about at this point, but 3-row family SUV is super hot segment right now. You have a ton of competition, and I like this one because everybody is usually thinking about Honda Pilot or Toyota Highlander, right? And so this is kind of that under the radar choice.
Yeah.
And it is, so we have this is the under $20,000 three-row category. So again, 2020, this is pretty new. I would
That's
put this
pretty
in
new. Yeah.
it's in your
That's
lightly
pretty
used
new.
category if you find the right one. So
What kind of mileage would those have on them?
yeah, I think they were, in the 30,000 miles, that type of thing.
A lot of life left in it, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing I think is important here that we've been trying to talk about is the whole idea of generations, right? When a car gets redesigned, it has a lifespan of, let's say, anywhere from 5 to 8 years, sometimes longer, depending on brand.
Sometimes longer, yeah, depending.
Sometimes double that.
Yeah.
So that's a thing. But look, so we're calling out a specific model year, 2017, 2020, whatever it might be. But it's important to know that, maybe you found a good deal on a 2019 or a 2021, some year that's adjacent to that other model year. So it's important to know, the generation of that vehicle, what the model years span. And then also, if you go to our site, you can see kind of how that reliability changes or doesn't change depending on the mile or depending on that model year. So it's important to kind of shop within the generation of vehicle because you might be able to find a better deal on a different model year. So our top picks are kind of a good starting place.
Yes, we are talking with Alex Knizek from Consumer Reports about the top 10 top used car picks. Alex, on that note, would you, if you were going to buy, let's say, that CX-9, would you wait to the last year of that generation? Because, as you know, and we know, they're making hundreds of little improvements. Some of them are major. Like, for example, some of these vehicles came out, they didn't have Bluetooth. In a year or two later, they had Bluetooth. That's a big thing, or steering wheel controls for Bluetooth. So,
yeah, 100%. I mean, generally speaking, a model gets more reliable as it ages. We see that in our survey. It's not always true. Sometimes if we're talking like a Toyota Corolla, it probably started out reliable and ended reliable as well.
Yeah.
But some of these other models, they tend to trend upwards as they age. So yes, generally, and I think that's true too with the Mazda CX-9 is, towards the end of the model year or the generation, you're going to have better reliability and more features. And I think that's actually a great thing about cr.org. When you go onto our site, you can see all of those little changes year by year. So you say, hey, I found a good deal on a 2019. Does it still have the features I want? You can go in there and you can easily see, okay, here's what changed for that year, and kind of compare and contrast and understand whether that's the right fit for you too.
All right. Les, why don't you take us, let's see what the next one is on Alex's list.
What is the next one?
What is the next of next discovery? I'll tell you one, Alex, if you want to try this. The 2020 Buick Envision.
Yeah. Yep. So this is in our luxury SUV under $20,000 category, and kind of like the CX-9. I think Buick just as a brand is a little bit under the radar.
Yeah.
Not thinking about this too much, but. This actually follows that trend we were just speaking about, where this is the last model year for this generation of Envision, and we just see that it has that all important above average reliability compared to even previous years. I mean, it's pretty good consistently, but it tends to rise even at the end. And again, so one way to get a good deal on a used car is really to go for maybe something less popular, right? We know everybody's looking for Toyotas and Hondas and whatnot and shopping for popular models. But if you're, okay with a less popular model, you might be able to get a better deal on it. And I think this kind of falls into that category a little bit. So, and they're nice cars, right? Luxurious, quiet, comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they are from the get-go. Are they? Do you advise people to buy high performance versions of used cars, or I know we don't typically recommend that because they're more likely to have been, let's say, driven hard.
Yeah, I think And that starts the conversation about how buying a used car just is so much different than buying a new car, right? I mean, I like to
Right.
use the, I guess, analogy, if you can call it that. If you're staring at two Toyota Camrys on the new car lot, right? Both 2024 model years, no miles, so just, for the most part, they're pretty much the same. But two used Camrys or any car in this case that has had a previous life, one was maintained really well and was a one owner vehicle versus one that wasn't maintained so well and maybe was a rental car or a lease or something like that. Those can be two totally different experiences as you live and age with the car, right? So yeah, I think with a high performance model, it's probably more likely, and I would encourage you to, even more than normal, look at the Carfax, the car history report, just see that it was maintained well. But also taking these vehicles for a test drive, right? Having it inspected by a mechanic that you trust to make sure that it's roadworthy.
Yeah,
So,
it is. It is what they say is. I mean, let's while we're on this, let's jump over to the Mazda Miata or MX-5.
Yep.
Now, what about buying something like this? Manual transmission, perhaps? Is that critical? Like, you got to, as you said, take it out for a test. If the clutch is messed up, that's a big cost right there. That's going to eat up a lot of your budget just to get that replaced, right?
Right, for sure. Yeah. And the last thing you want to do is buy a car like this and instantly have to do a bunch of work on it or spend even more money. It starts to erode that savings
value.
That
value proposition. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, another solid thing you can do, and with maybe it's more important with a car like this, is to consider a CPO car, right? High performance car or not, if you go for that certified pre-owned, yes, we see that you'll pay a little bit more, 2% on average, to get the CPO version of a car compared to the non-CPO version of that same car. But you're kind of paying for convenience and peace of mind because that car is going to come with warranty. It's been inspected by the mechanics. They have a checklist that they have to go through to ultimately certify the car, right? And interestingly, through our own research and surveying, we know that people who go the CPO route, they tend to be more satisfied with the car and they see less problems. So you're paying a little bit more, but it can be really worth it, especially if it's on a car like this where you might be a little more unsure about how it was treated, or at least want to be a little bit more cautious. So definitely encourage people to consider that route as well.
CPO cars, are they typically off-lease cars? So it's been one driver, maybe it's 3 years old, 4 years old?
A lot of the times, yeah. And definitely historically, that's the case. But I think really interestingly with CPO is, I think it was mostly spurred up by the pandemic, but you start to see extended CPO programs, especially from the more reliable brands like Toyota and Honda. They now have CPO cars that are 5 years old, even 10 years old in some cases. You'll get certified pre-owned.
Wow.
And I think they follow a different criteria than the ones that are 3 years old, right? Like maybe that checklist is a little shorter for the 10-year-old car than it is for the 3-year-old car. But it also speaks to, I guess, the trust they have in their models, the confidence they have that those cars are going to be reliable if they're going to give you a warranty on a 10-year-old Corolla or something like that. So, so yes, typically, and I think most of them are in that, off-lease 3-year-old time frame, but there are even options beyond that at this point.
Okay, Alex, I'm going to take a segue here and talk about one of the other vehicles you mentioned. People want to get into a hybrid. Toyota Corolla hybrid. I was just in one of the new ones. I thought, this is crazy. This is a great vehicle, especially if you have a long commute or whatever. It's reliable. It gets like crazy mileage. It's less money than the Prius. And hey, you got 4 doors and a trunk. Anything you would say about buying a used hybrid? Now, 2021 is not that old, but any concern about buying a used hybrid?
I mean, like you mentioned, at this type of age, absolutely not. I mean, there are a few cars that I've recommended to people more than the one we're looking at right now, this Corolla hybrid. I mean, it's just comfortable. And like you said, you might get 45 miles per gallon instead of 50 with the Prius, but at that point you're splitting hairs with the amount of gas you're saving. So it's really a solid choice. But when you're considering used, the older it gets, I mean, yes, you do start to see potential, need for a battery to be replaced or something like that. at the same time, Toyota's been doing hybrid systems for so
Long
long.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, really just iterating on them, making them better. And so even a 10-year-old Toyota hybrid system is super stout. It works well. And what I like is the batteries and specifically with the Toyota ones. First of all, there's many of them out there, right? So if you did need to get a replacement battery, it's not going to be the most difficult thing to source, especially because they, mix and match parts across their model lines. They're also typically right under the rear seat. So replacing one,
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to say go do it yourself, but if you were ambitious and handy, you probably could do that yourself.
I actually watched a few YouTube videos. I think you did too, Les, about swapping them out in the Prius, and there were companies that basically rate batteries, and you buy used batteries from them, and it's not that hard. It's not that hard.
And the nice thing with a hybrid is that battery is, a fraction of the size of what you think of a battery in like an EV or something at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right. So the cost of it is, I'm not going to say it's cheap, but it's not, a massive battery pack. So it's relatively inexpensive.
Yeah.
Now go ahead, Les.
Safety precautions. Just make sure if you don't know what you're doing, read up a lot on how to do it. Don't these are lethal batteries.
Still encourage you to go to a mechanic for that, but the nice thing is it won't be difficult for the mechanic to do in the end.
Not at all.
Right. Now, Alex, so much information, and we didn't even get into the reliable brands yet, but we should talk about pickup trucks.
Oh yeah.
Buying this one is one of the older ones. It might be the oldest. But it doesn't matter. It's a Toyota Tacoma. You have a 2015 for under $20K. That seems like a great vehicle to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this one, I think you're going to be doing a little bit more searching to get the right one. I mean, look, I own an old Toyota truck myself, and so I kind of have an idea of how the market goes on these things, and they just hold their value like crazy. So you will have to do a little bit of searching, but yeah, don't be afraid of one with, what seems like high miles, assuming it was treated, well, and you do all the due diligence that we've talked about, checking for the history report and all those things. But yeah, these cars are super reliable. But yes, to get them this is I think we have it under $20,000. And so to find a Tacoma under 20K, I think you'll be doing a little searching. Luckily on cr.org, we actually do have listings and things that you can check out. But yeah, I mean, you can't really go wrong. It might not be the most comfortable or fuel efficient pickup truck out there,
but it's rugged.
And it's just going to outlast, it's going to stand the test of time for sure.
What mileage would you say, number of miles would you shy away from on something like that? Would you go as high as 150 or something? Or would you say, no, keep it under 100?
For the right price, a Tacoma with 150, I wouldn't say no. I mean, just be wary of rust, depending on where you live. We're up in the Northeast, so you have to be really careful because, the engine might be and the transmission might be as good as new, essentially, but that frame might be a little, seen better days. So
Swiss cheese.
yeah. So you got to be careful with that. I think that's the Achilles heel of some of these trucks, but assuming that's all good and it was treated right, then I wouldn't be too scared of 150 on something like that.
Yeah, that is great. That is really great. Great information, Alex.
Sure.
Go ahead, Les.
Well, I was just going to say, people wanting this kind of information and getting your list, go to consumerreports.com.
.org, I believe, right?
.org, yes. .org. I'm sorry, you're right.
Yeah. What is we actually have an address for this. Maybe you do too, Alex. I don't think I wrote it down, but they can go to this.
cr.org/used cars is going to bring you to all of the new used car information that we just launched. So you'll get to see basically these lists of vehicles that are going to be, say under 10,000, under 15,000. You'll be able to see, and they're all they all follow this same methodology that we talked about with these top picks. They are consistent reliability, well-performing, safe, all of these things. So we kind of, do a lot of the heavy lifting to just make it easy to start searching for that car that you actually want.
And we didn't get to but the most reliable used car brands, kind of no surprise, Lexus
Yeah.
and Toyota at the top, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, they tend to be more conservative, and even Mazda, which is somewhat of a distant third, but definitely well-deserved third place on the list there. It's going to be very conservative with the redesign. So just like we talked about with that Corolla hybrid, it lends itself to good reliability over time. So, but you know, when it comes to that brand list, the most important thing there is reliability. We know that people buying a used car, that's what's at the top of their list, right? You're trying to save money, and buying something that's going to be reliable is what helps you do that in a big way, because that's going to cost you less, hopefully, to own. You'll have fewer problems, and it's also going to be less of a hassle. I think people don't think about that so much, but you know, if your car's breaking all the time, you got to bring it to the mechanic or to the dealer or whatever, and that is annoying.
Yeah, you join the part of the month club, which is never good. Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Alex, we really appreciate it. We'll have to have you back on for more information. This is great for our audience. This is the type thing they ask about.
Absolutely.
And
I'm glad to be here and glad to share this information, and hopefully everybody finds it useful.
All right. Well, just hang out for a second, and we're going to say it's time for me to say I'm Fred Staab.
I'm Les Jackson.
We are going to see you down the road. Take care.
Bye.